lot of people lost their livelihoods and would move to cities from the countryside. I found it fascinating that with that, there was these otherworldly lights that started appearing in that town. I'm Maria Lax. I'm a Finnish photographer and I've been living in London for the past 10 years, and I'm working both in sort of fine art and then commercially as well. I became a photographer kind of by accident. I studied cinematography and I dropped out of film school, and then I wanted to move back to Finland, where I'm from, and start exploring my own ideas and my own creativity. Some Kind of Heavenly Fire is a very personal project. It's about UFO sightings in my hometown in northern Finland in the end of the 60s and beginning of the 70s. And it's very interlinked in my family history as well. My granddad wrote a book about the phenomena in the early 70s, and I discovered that book, and that was sort of my way in to the story. It was really interesting to read that book and sort of really dive into his world and see his original manuscripts and notes. And I was ready to sort of understand them in a different way. And because my granddad was so unwell, I just felt like the need to sort of reconnect with him and reconnect the family history and find out more about my granddad. So I read the book. There was this thing and this whole past and vibrant history that I never knew about. So finding out all those stories, I just found it incredibly rich, and I immediately started having visual ideas, and I was like, I have to dive into this. And I just found the people who were mentioned in the book, and I started knocking on people's doors and see who would talk to me. It was really a time when northern Finland changed and it never really covered. There was a lot of economical struggle, there was a lot of hardship, and a lot of people lost their livelihoods and would move to cities from the countryside. I found it fascinating that with that, there was these otherworldly lights that started appearing in that town. And I feel like that says a lot about how people saw their future. Because some people said, oh, there's these lights and they're terrifying. And some people were like, oh no, these supernatural lights are they're a sign that we haven't been forgotten, you know, that we're not here alone. I really didn't know anything about photography, and sort of it was very exploratory in that sense. And then for other parts, I used a lot of family archive in this. I felt like it needed the different timelines, it needed the different dimensions, so I did a deep dive into my family's photo albums. I was really lucky to be able to spend time with the people who had experienced the lights, and they had seen them firsthand, and the accounts were really vibrant and the descriptions were amazing. This image is one of the only ones of people in the shot. I made a very conscious decision of leaving portraits out, because I wanted to avoid the viewer going in too much detail of like, can I trust this person? Has this person seen aliens? And really getting preoccupied with these thoughts that are not conducive to taking in the story. It does feel quite timeless. That came in where I took that shot as a light that I've seen my entire life. Very hard, very warm, contrasty light. And I really like the way how she's obscured and you wouldn't know when this was taken. And it's a really nice image to include in a story that really spans through the decades. This image of the shadow of a person in a house, it's one of my favorite places to photograph on the planet. And this is actually an abandoned house next to my parents' house. It's a really interesting place because it's been empty for absolutely decades, but all the furniture is there. All the clothes are there, all the pictures are on the wall, so it's like a time capsule that you enter. And for me, it was really important to include images from this house and have this like abandoned house feeling in the book as well. Because what happened during these sightings and the 60s and 70s, that a lot of people just packed up their things, boarded the windows and they left and they never returned. And all these houses were just left behind, and it's a reminder and it's a monument to that era where lives changed and they never sort of recovered. This image in front of the curtains, it's maybe the only self-portrait that I've ever taken. And I never really talked about it being a self-portrait. It's a funny spin to put on, like, it's my history, and so I jumped in and I took it. And what really inspired me was I'd been hearing a lot of stories about the lights sort of lighting up the houses and the rooms when people were asleep, and it would fill these rooms with like all kinds of colors and just really be beautiful. And I just found myself in this place, in this room, and with the light coming in, I just thought that was the perfect way to visualize the story. It's a very interesting subject because it's about a very subjective truth, and it has been a very painful thing for a lot of people who experience these lights as well. So it was a very important project in that sense.